Welcome back again, everybody. Thanks for tuning into my channel and all the support you keep on giving me. On to a car I absolutely hate. It's a 1971 Matchbox Baja buggy. I hated this car so much as a kid that this isn't my actual car. My real car I actually threw over the fence aiming for the local bully about 30 years ago and missed him by a country mile, and it ended up in Mrs. Cannon's garden. She was the local cat lady. The garden was riddled with cat tat. I never saw the thing again, but I absolutely hated it. Everything about it. No steering wheel. It looked ugly. There was always pipes and bits that had snapped off it. The suspension was rubbish. Couldn't stand it. As it so happens, I go to a toy collector's fair a couple of weekends ago with my son, and lo and behold, there was this car there. Picked it up, nice condition. The chap there says to me, 30 quid, and I couldn't believe it, 30 quid. And I said, no, you're okay. How much do you want to give me? I said 15. Didn't want it anyway. And next minute he's heckling me. You know nothing about diecast, blah, 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 blah. So I go around the corner and everything you see here now in front of you, except for these ones in a plastic bag, which were £1, everything else was 30 pence, including this little buggy. And I was so chuffed with it, I thought, I'm going to buy it for 30p just so I can throw it across the room back at this bloke, because this damn thing is starting to haunt me. Only joking, wouldn't condone any sort of violence, not on diecast cars anyway, so I thought this car is out to haunt me, it's going to keep on giving me nightmares, why don't I turn it into something I like? So for 30 pence, what the hell, rock and roll, I got it. So on with taking it apart, like I've done in other videos, and I've done a tutorial on it. If you haven't already seen it, please go and have a look in my other videos on the playlist. But inside, typical of the cars of this era, and again another reason why I hated it, with no steering wheel or no other sort of detail. But actually there's a lot going on there, in the sense that this part of the interior is acting as some sort of suspension for those wheels. This engine is again put in a bit like when they put the bodies on with the rivet post, although it is still plastic, so that'll need drilling out. But getting on to taking the interior out, I did have a few goes at this off camera because it was very fragile, so I've sped it up and just skipped straight to the end taking this apart. And what you'll see now is quite a groovy sort of moon buggy looking interior, come chassis, come suspension little assembly, and a nice little main chassis plate which isn't in bad condition at all really. But what I will do is, like I did with the Zaxby Capri and again on them little styrene diaries that I did, I'm going to make another interior for this. So not that I'm going to spoil any content for you, but I will get on to doing that. But I'll just take this engine and exhaust assembly off, and again this little bit is part of the, well, it is plastic, it is part of this engine, and it's just a tight fit more than a rivet style push back on itself. But I tried to force it out, but it was having none of it, so I thought best I'll just drill it out, this one. But it's nice little chrome detailing on there. It's worn away in parts, but again no big deal, I can paint over that later on. But for now I'll just chuck it in the little topped up pot of jizz, and I'll leave that to one side while I crack on with other things. I think I'll do a tutorial on the different methods I use. I keep using this all the time in my videos, but I do use other methods, so I might do another little how-to on how I do that. But I'll get back to this interior come suspension design thing again, and as I say, I'm gonna make my own. It does need to flex a little bit where the wheels and axles go, but I can ditch all 4 seats, make some sort of racing for you. And again, using all my other offcuts of styrene. I literally have not cracked into anything new on any of these projects. These are still bags and bags of offcuts that I've got. This scale is absolutely great. So all the stuff I've used for 1/24ths and RC cars and other builds over the years, all these little bits I've been hoarding for this long have come in absolutely fantastic. So I'll draw around the profile first of all and come up with a basic platform to begin with. And on my little variable scroll saw, I'm just going to trim it off. I could have scalpeled this, as there's a couple of different shapes in there. It's a lot quicker just to jump on this and cut it out this method rather than bending blades all over the place and going around edges and corners. And again, I'll drill out the holes which I've lined up ready to accept. Really good stuff, Styrene, as I think you all sort of get the picture now, how obsessed I am with it all. But as is often the case, the first off hit, I'm no perfect magician by any means, and as I've proven, I've just copied the existing design, and sometimes it's best to go straight back to basics and do your own thing, because before I've even had a chance to put any little ribs on the front like the current one, which I was planning to do, just completely replicate it. It's that weak in that part, and now you look at it, it's obvious it's going to be that weak. So it's back to the drawing board, or chill out for 5 minutes and just have a quick go over this paint job. I've done this loads of times, so I'll just skip over this rather quickly. It's been in for an hour or so. Comes off really, really easy. I use a product from B&Q stores here in the UK, which is the paint and varnish remover from their own brand, Dial, however you want to pronounce it. And there's quite a few bits of paint left on this one. It's 1971, it's nearly 50 years old, I guess, so there's going to be some stubborn ones. So I'll go over that with a wire wheel later on and come back to that. But that little breather has given me a chance to go back to basics and go for a very, very simple inboard platform. It's got a few functions, like I say. It's got to house the axles and wheels. It's got to be the interior. It's got to flex a bit like suspension. And I'm going to use this edition 6 bucket seat that he makes. Again, I'll put all the links in the description to the guy. But it's going to sit a little bit off center where this little locating pin is, so I'm just going to grind that bit off so it'll sit a little bit more to one side and not bang in the center and throw off the geometry of this car. So I'm just going to give it a light tickle and just knock the leading edge, still leave a bit of a guide there so it'll still locate, but just enough so the seat can sit to one side. So now on to holding the wheels. The current one's got some little teeth that you can clip in and out, so I'm not going to replicate that. I'm going to use some styrene tube and simply sit it in situ underneath once I've trimmed it to the inside chassis size, at least anyway. And you can roll it very, very lightly with a sharp blade if you're careful, and it'll cut through really easy. And then to locate it, I'm going to use some more styrene section. It's a little C section or U section, whatever you interpret that as. And I'm going to put that on there just so it's just the right size, so when the tube sits in there, if I didn't do this, the contact point of the tube against the flat styrene is minimal, but at least with this little channel, it's got 3 sides of a fashion covered. So it'll sit in there very, very straightforward, very, very easy. And again, I'm doing this real time, so you can see how fast it sets. Again, if you hadn't already seen my other tutorial, well, it's not really a tutorial, I've called it a Styrene Diaries. It's a sort of a tutorial on how I build these more complex things. Go and check that out. And a quick line up. See, it doesn't always stick first time if you put it on the surfaces first. It's always best to do it this way. I was just trying to be clever and skip it a bit quicker, but it is easy if you just do it this. It technically welds it all together. And that's what you're finished with. To start with, just about spot on that. And with this model now, I'm going to use some wheels from Greenlight again, and their axle pins are a little bit bigger in diameter, so I'm going to use my little pin vise and drill, which is really good. I recommend these to anyone. You can just take it easy and it bites through with ease without having to crack open anything electric. So eco-friendly hand-powered drill, back to basics, and it's absolutely fit for purpose, spot on. So I'll crack on and do that off camera and not bore you too much with that. But these are the wheels, as I say, they come in packs of 4s. I'll put a link in the description from where I get them from. But they are very good, and if you've never used them before, there's no messy gluing, there's no silly method of fitting them together. They literally push fit. You can if you wanted to glue them, but I've never ever glued any of these Greenlight ones because they're perfect. It's such a tight, snug fit, and if you wanted to, you could take them apart and chuck them on something else if you didn't particularly fancy it. So it's good set. So I'm going to whiz through some more of this. It's a chassis come interior come body fixer in place thing, because it's got multi-purposes now. This is almost like a chassis within a chassis. So these parts I'm putting on now is to hold the body on, essentially, to keep the body up, should I say, and mount it all together. I'm making a little dashboard now out of an L section. The transmission tunnel, off-centered it albeit, but some more section. Well, it's a square box section. Well, it's not really, yeah, square section of styrene which I've trimmed down to make almost a center console type affair there, where I'm going to stick a gear stick and whatnot on later on. And it's so addictive, this styrene. It sets off and finishes the builds. You know, people have said it takes you to another level. It's funny when people say that, especially to me, because I've never been that fond of my own work and my own biggest critic, to be honest. So it's rather nice when people are saying that, but it really does finish off interiors and the other details that you can put around it using this stuff. It is getting away a little bit from die casts, but as you've seen all my cars on my channel, I don't do the norm. I like to do modifications and restorations, and you can see now just how fine I like to get down to by making some more little gauges out of the rod. And just in the background there's some gear knobs and steering wheel, which I've already done. It's important when you go into this amount of trouble to keep checking, because some things often don't fit, but overall it fits. I'm just not overly happy with how high this seat is sitting, so it's touching the roof a little bit, so it looks a little bit out of proportion. So I think just in this instance I'm just going to shave a little bit off it, just to sit it that little bit lower, and give it a little bit more clearance, and it doesn't look a bit too out of sync. And once it's all done, a quick couple of coats in a white primer for when I'm painting to make it a little bit easier, and I'll get back onto the body now. So a wire wheel to the top of it, well, all over for that matter, and just to take off all them stubborn bits of paint. There's no real pitting in this model, so whoever had this one has done a good job of looking after it, really. And for 30p, I mean, crying out loud, 30p, what's 30p in dollars? I suppose that's 50 cents, I guess. I don't know, something like that. So cheap little hobby, and even more cheaper is all the little bits and bobs that I'm using around me. So back to another aluminium can to make a skid plate for the front. Do take care when you're doing this though, it is naturally very sharp if you don't handle it with care. But that said, touch wood, I've never cut myself on it, so I'm cheating fate saying that now, but scoring it very, very lightly like this with a blade edge, and it will snap off very, very easily, and it did as I picked it up. But it's such a good little material for die-cast cars, for making things out of. Bends really easy, forms really easy over a pencil there. I did put some holes in it, or indents with it, sorry, with a little scriber to give it a little bit more of a aesthetic look. And again, to cut, a little pair of model scissors or nail scissors. It trims just as easy as paper. Again, be very, very careful of the edges though. And you can make a nice little addition like that. I'm going to sandwich it in with a little bumper cum bull bar at the front, nudge bar, bumper bar, whatever terminology you use around the world for that. Again, out of styrene, roughly cut to shape. And looking at it. And then what I'm going to do now is, with some rod, again, no prizes for guessing what material I'm going to use. I'm just going to heat it up to bend it over, and this is a long-winded process because it's got such a high, well, such a fast flash point on it. It will melt and then it will just totally distort, so it takes forever sometimes. So I've just showed you the method I use over a little tea light there, but I've just jumped it a little bit and get straight to the point and show you the finished one there. And then with a slightly thicker bit of rod and some slightly thinner bit of rod drilled and then placed inside, I'm going to make some little lollipops. Why are you making lollipops? Only joking. They're little mini spotlights to go on the bull bar, although they do look like lollipops according to my son. So here we go, I'm sticking the lollipops on the front, hey ho. A little bit intricate, but if you can resist the temptation to do a lot of pushing around, it will stick first time. Onto the exhausts again now at the back. I didn't particularly like anyway how they went up in the sky, so I'm going to make my own by quickly making the base template, and it had a bit missing, so a little bit of guesswork and a little bit of trimming back and two off camera to make the little mounting piece that's going to sit nice and snug in that recess there. And then with some more rod, which have bent at 90 degrees and then just cut a little 45-degree angle on the end, with some bigger tubing slid over the top, I'm going to make a little set of pipes either side. And it didn't take that long, actually. I do find it very therapeutic doing these little things, and I don't have too many goes at it, to be honest. So a lot of people have asked how many times you make mistakes, how many times do you break things and snap, and it's not that many, to be honest. I do them. Haven't managed to catch any on camera yet because it'd be nice to have some blooper reels at the end. But this is my little chill time, so it took me probably about an hour to make these little exhausts. Some tunes on in the background and it all looks pretty sweet. Tips on the end look a bit too long, so I am going to trim them back a little bit towards the end, but just for a trial fit, it doesn't look too bad. And a lot better than the upswept in the air pointing things that it had before. And I'm going to add some HT leads to this now, and it's got a little slight raise nipple on top, which just pushed it down a little bit with the scriber just to help guide the little pin drill away. And then with some bead wire, some necklace bead wire, you can make some great little HT leads. So this is the sum of all the parts now. Some of the bits that I'm not going to use now have shifted out the way, but the chassis there, the body and the engine from the original one, some of the Greenlight wheels, edition 6 bucket seats, everything ready to be painted, all in my superb paint drying system version 1.0, available soon. And away I go with the painting of it all. Some slight detailing all round, and you're probably asking why am I painting this silver again? Well, the chrome had worn off a little bit in places, so it was a bit too bright as well in places as well, so I thought I'll start painting that. And again with the bucket seat and the interior, I always start with the flatter matte colours first to begin with, build up slowly with all gloss, and just generally work all the way around it. There's no method to the order in which I do it, not even colours, to be honest. And I often paint something, put the pot away and clean the brush and come back and think, oh crikey, I could have painted that bit, and go round and round and round in circles. So I've shown some of this now with masking on, because a few people have commented, why don't I mask all areas off? Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't, sometimes I forget to film myself masking it off. So to keep subscribers happy, I'm just doing that. Probably leave an hour or so, I guess, with the gloss paints. And so what I'm using now is a product called bare metal foil, and if you've never used this stuff before, it's really good. You can get it in aluminium finishes, chrome finishes, gold finishes, self-adhesive. Again, I've probably had this sheet the best part of 20 years or so now. It goes on and on forever on these little detailed parts. It trims really easy, conforms really easy. It'll come off easy as well if you're not careful, whilst you're cutting, that is, anyway, and putting it down. But once it's on and it's moulded to the shape you're doing, it finishes it off absolutely spot on. As the name suggests, it's bare metal foil. It's really clever, great stuff to use. Finishing off the final install of the engine then, with all the little bead wire for the HT leads put on, and there is the final engine exhaust assembly. Quite a bit of difference to how the original one looked now, so I'm pleasantly surprised at how that's come out. Actually, it looks okay. Finishing off the interior with some little vinyl sticker for seat belts again, which is not as fiddly as it looks actually, with it being self-adhesive, because it will stick and stay put quite easily. And a few little details I did put on afterwards with some paint is just some little buckles in silver just to finish it all off. Then on to the final stages of the decals now, made by myself. I'm going to make a Castrol liveried car. Again, I've done a tutorial on this, so if you want to take a look at my other videos, you'll see how my methods at least of how I do it. And it's got the retro Castrol logo and theme running through it, with it being a nearly 50-year-old car. Although it doesn't look 50 years old now, it looks pretty good. So here is how it originally looked, and now you're thinking, why is that car in the background if he threw it at the bully's head? Well, as it happened, I was going through all my cars, and lo and behold, the green car was there. It suddenly dawned on me, even though I hated this one as much as it did as a kid, it was the purple one with the yellow flecks or spots all over it that I actually threw at him. So that is lying in Mrs. Cannon's garden somewhere still, some 35 years later. And now, either way, I've got a car that I actually quite like. Might not be to everybody's liking. I haven't done too much with the exterior in terms of the casting itself. I've just merely added interior and the modification to the engine and the wheels. So that is my take on a car I absolutely hated. It's given me more food for thought on taking some of the cars I would completely ignore and see if I can turn them around into something actually I quite like. So as always, thanks for watching. It only remains for me to do one thing.